and I will remind our panelists intimately throughout the panel that they are responsible for acting out the speech in appropriate.
We've got plenty of steampunk in the H.G. Wells thing.
Yeah, for some filth stain, man. It's not a good actor.
Well, let's see you guys do the chick thing around on the book Rogers.
You know what? You could be the computer counsel. Captain William Buckland.
Thank you for coming.
Dr. Hill. What a handsome man you are, Captain William Buckland. I'm not surprised. Why did we find you on the Draconia? I don't know what happened up on that.
Hi, come on. Handsome man.
That's a great time. Now she deserves her own pass. You can talk about Matthew sitting by Rogers. And now it takes about 5 minutes. Okay. Look, obviously the 10-ton gorilla in the room is Star Trek the Motion Picture. Star Trek the Motion Picture, you know, love it or hate it, it's a fascinating artifact of the time. It is a film, again, greatly influenced by Kubrick's 2001. And if you're younger and you didn't see it in the theater, it's very easy to say, this is long and ponderous and ridiculous, and wow, isn't this a lot? Where's Nomad? Oh wait, there's Nomad. It's called Beecher.
Oh look, there's Klingon.
You have to remember, if you were a Star Trek fan in the 70s, that you had never seen the things on screen that Star Trek the Motion Picture showed you. Like, for instance, when you first went to San Francisco on Earth, it was the first time you ever saw Earth in the 23rd century. You see it tomorrow's yesterday, and then, the past, and you saw Earth, but you never actually seen it in the future. And now, look, every episode of Next Generation, you have these establishment shots of Starfleet Academy and all this other stuff. But at the time, as a Star Trek fan who's been living off the James Blish novels and the Alan Foster and the animated series and a bunch of really bad, chaos fiction like Rob was reading, this is like an incredible thing to see. And incredible as was, to see Shatner, at the Starfleet headquarters, you then saw, the Enterprise being built in Dry Dock, where it should be built, as opposed to in Iowa. There's so much.
But did we never see the Enterprise go to work in the series? Was the first time?
It was the first time we saw it. It has Jerry Goldsmith's incredible score, which didn't win the Oscar. It was the Driven to Lose a Little Romance, which is one of the great Oscar flights of all time. Clearly some of our perceptions are colored by our nostalgia. I would be the first to admit that. But at the same time, there are things about Star Trek the Motion Picture that it did better than any subsequent film. And there are things about it that it did worse than virtually any other film.
But it was also really popular. Adjusted for inflation, I believe it's the second highest grossing of all the Star Trek films.
It was the first.
That's what I don't think people kind of remember is the incredible amount of anticipation for that film, because it's been through such an incredibly long process of becoming, going from being a movie project to a television project, and it was just unbelievable to be, the whole sort of Star Trek fan phenomenon that really built during the 70s, and people were just amazed that this was actually going to happen. They couldn't believe it, and that it was going to become this big budget movie. And, I remember I actually had to travel to another state to see Star Trek this first weekend because it didn't open near my hometown. And I was hearing this incredible music and watching amazing miniature work for the first time.
You're pushing. People know your job.
But it's very similar, actually, to me to watching a Phantom Menace, although I knew that was going to suck. 10 minutes of actually starting to watch people talk in that movie, I just had this whole flop sweat feeling, and I was just out of high school at the time, so I wasn't seeing this as a little kid. I remember driving home with my friends. We were all trying to make believe it had been great. We did that long to see something that boring. And how many people here liked the new movie? How many people did like it? Okay, so most of the people liked it. I mean, I hate to say it, and I'm sure it will be heresy to many people, but for me, watching that new movie was the only time I really actually felt like I was watching Star Trek on a movie screen. And that's sort of the movie I wanted to see when I went to see Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Even though I love those actors, it was always fun having like these class reunions every year where you see these actors do their shtick. In a movie, it was more like, I just didn't understand why you're watching these old guys still on the Enterprise. I wanted to see these characters kind of in their prime. I wanted to see people having fist fights. I wanted to see Kirk and Spock in a gunfight, and some really large-scale action. And even though there's a lot of incredibly stupid things that happen in the new Star Trek movie, I totally got off on it because I really felt like I was watching those characters again for the first time.
Well, I have to say that I had a complete opposite reaction than you did, because I always looked at Star Trek as a kid as being sort of this very profound thing. And when I watched the episodes growing up, it really meant something to me. I would puzzle over them and philosophize over them. And when I saw Star Trek: The Motion Picture, I thought it was really interesting that your core, the Troika, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, were all really kind of pissed off when you first meet them. I mean, Spock has failed to achieve Kulinar. Kirk has been a desk jockey for 2.5 years. McCoy's off studying for brainy medicine and is not happy to be back on the Enterprise.
He's not actually studying for brainy medicine. That's from a novel, right?
Yes, it's from the novel, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, written by Gene Roddenberry, so it's canon. And in that film, when it got to the scene after Spock is mind melded with V'ger and he gets spun back out, and he's on the bed in sick bay, and he takes Kirk's hand and says, "This simple feeling is beyond V'ger's comprehension." I was like, my mind was blown in the theater. No, I was 12 years old, and I'm looking at this thing going, this was the Star Trek I always imagined that it was in my head, where the scope of the universe was different than anything I'd seen before.
And the ship felt it had scope.
Yeah,
it felt big.
and it felt like, somebody actually designed the engineering section as opposed to shooting it at a brewery. Like the inside of the ship looked like somebody actually thought, okay, if the ship's shaped like this, the inside would look this way. And the bridge had an imaging system instead of a window.
You'll be able to later in Star Trek SmackDown.
Anyway, yeah. I hope that ship gets called out. But anyway, for me, why? Hey, boy, shit. But it really meant something to me, and I thought at the end of the movie, I was moved by it. And to tell you the truth, when I saw Star Trek II for the first time, I was sort of disappointed. I didn't like the production design, and I thought Ricardo Montalban was over the top, because in the original series, Ricardo Montalban was such a cool badass. And he was such an intellect, like the Klingons. The Klingons were totally ruined forever in Star Trek III. I mean, anyway, this is not a Star Trek discussion. But anyway, I found
always a Star Trek.
And what I think is lacking in the new Star Trek: The Motion Picture's problem was that it was not fun. It was not amusing. It was so serious the whole time. The new Star Trek movie was really fun the whole time, but it had nothing in it philosophically to grab a hold of. There was nothing.
I do not disagree with you on that.
I know. But the new Star Trek movie, not about anything.
No.
Not about anything. The movie has no story. Captain Kirk, does he go through any long, dark night of the soul in the new Star Trek?
He starts the movie in long, dark
He's given, what's wrong with it? His father is a great hero and has saved 800 people, yet he's a mopey little bitchy wife who steals a 300-year-old antique. What a dick.